What's up, everybody? Iggy, the realtor. We're going to switch up gears from doing the typing blogging thing. I'm going to start doing the video blogs for these Friday updates and a bunch of other topics. Probably do them from the comfort of my own home and maybe somewhere else. We'll see how it goes. Today is Friday, December 4th, 2020. It's my mama's birthday. I want to say happy birthday to my mama. If it wasn't for you, I'd probably be somewhere in Eastern Europe right now, driving like a 12-year-old BMW in an Adidas tracksuit with a bunch of gold chains on me. And I might still do that, but it'll be somewhere in Colorado in a Toyota Tacoma instead. Guys, we're going to do this. I'm going to start at the national level, state level, then go to the local level. That's kind of going to be the format for these Friday updates. Kind of start with the big picture and then zero in on our hyper local environment. So nationally, same as locally, we have a inventory shortage that's perpetuated by low interest rates, high construction costs, and just the desire of home ownership, I guess. But the low interest rates are really the driving factor. The fact that money has gotten so cheap has forced rents up higher, has forced people to really think about home ownership as a alternative to renting, which is good. At the same time, builders are not keeping up enough. The cost of construction is driving prices way higher to where a lot of people can't afford it. So just like a self-perpetuating cycle. The rates nationally continue to be at or near record lows. They're kind of fluctuating a little bit here and there depending on the debt market. But historically, rates are at 5,000-year lows, and I'm not even making that up. Interest rates historically are between 5 and 6% is like a normal average range. We're seeing mortgages at or even below 2% sometimes, which is insane for a 30-year loan. I mean, it really is like free money. What is that doing to the pricing of housing? It's pushing it up. You make the dollar cheaper, the assets become more expensive, right? So what we're seeing on a national scale right now is that month over month pricing is increasing at about 1.5% per month. Historically, healthy price growth in real estate has been somewhere between 3 and 5% a year. We're seeing double-digit growth now for 5 or 6 years in a row now, not just here in Colorado Springs, which is definitely following the trend, but also nationally. What's causing that, guys? It's this. Yeah, I just did that. Our money supply has increased to $19.1 trillion. At the beginning of this pandemic in March, we had roughly $14.5 trillion floating around. That's what's referred to as M2 money. So about 22% of all the money in existence was born this year. That money needs a home, and real estate is one of the places it tends to go to in a hurry. So even though we all know that trickle-down economics doesn't really work, trickle into real estate economics is a very, very real thing. And right now, before the 11th of December, to avoid another government shutdown, all of a sudden our Democratic and Republican overlords seem to be coming together on a $900 billion stimulus package, which I see as probably just the first step in a bunch more quantitative easing going into next year. So more money, cheaper money is going to result in higher housing prices, higher any kind of commodity price, and a higher cost of living in general. What are we seeing as far as the expectations from the Fed on interest rates? They've set the expectation that there will be no changes in the central bank rate for at least the next 3 years. So now what we're pricing in is 0% central bank rates for the foreseeable future. Forbearances have dropped to half of where they were in May. So in May, we had almost 5 million forbearances nationally. Right now, we're at like 2.7 million. So most of those loans have actually caught up. And while some of them will for sure end up as foreclosures anyway, we're seeing historic lows in the third quarter for foreclosures nationally, largely because of the rules and the government assistance, the moratorium on foreclosures. However, any foreclosures that do fall out of those forbearances, we would appreciate. And that's not to sound calloused or like an ass, but our inventory is so low that any foreclosures that we do get are going to get soaked up and just help the market out. Once these government programs do run out, we're going to have to keep an eye on the monetary and fiscal policy going forward. But for the time being, it's all, Stimulus, stimulus, stimulus. Give it all away. That's kind of what we're seeing, and that's going to result in higher pricing across the board for real estate and the stock market. Statewide, we're seeing the same thing as nationally. Denver has set new records just last week. An average detached single family home in the greater Denver area right now is pulling $615,000 on average. The secondary markets like ours, like Colorado Springs, have been benefiting nationally. The Tacomas to the Seattles have been booming. The Colorado Springs to Denvers have been booming. There is definitely some pressure on some of the primary cities like San Francisco and New York come to mind, specifically due to the pandemic of people trying to escape the crowds. But the secondary markets like ours and Denver, I would call a secondary market to the San Franciscos and New Yorks, we are booming. And we've been booming before the pandemic, but the pandemic seems to be accelerating the desire for people to live in places like ours. So yeah, Denver's setting brand new records, and so are we. Colorado Springs median price for November finished at $380,000, which is down slightly from October and September. However, it's statistically irrelevant how it's down. We were plateauing around 384, 385,000 for a median. 380 is less than a 2% drop going into winter with inventory numbers that we have. I think it's statistically irrelevant at this point. $429,000 for the average single-family home here in the El Paso County area. The inventory, guys, speaks for itself. We've got 345 single-family homes countywide. That's for a population of 740,000 people, roughly. So that's like less than a house. Yeah, it's less than one house for every 2,000 people. There's almost 5,000 realtors in our local market here, running after 345 houses. Multiple offers are absolutely the norm. Appraisal gap guarantees, which is the buyer agreeing to pay cash over appraised value, those are sealing deals. I've written multiple offers in the last few weeks, 40, 50 grand over list price in like the $400,000 price range and have lost. So it is not a buyer-friendly market whatsoever. Sellers are making a killing. I've seen houses that were sold a year and a half to 2 years ago that are now being resold for $100,000, $120,000 more. And what's the main reason for it, guys? Again, easy money, free money, and there's really nothing to be done about this. It's not like we can control what the central bank does, so all we can do is capitalize on it. How do you capitalize on this devaluation of the dollar? You own stuff. And I highly recommend that you own stuff, because as unfair as it is, as unfortunate as it is, we are definitely perpetuating a system of the haves and the have-nots, and it's getting harder and harder to be a have-not, a renter. Dude, I feel for you guys. I mean, I absolutely feel for you, and I'm more than happy to help you understand how to capitalize on creating wealth through real estate. I was a bartender when I bought my first house. I've scrambled most of my life. I completely understand what it takes to make it work, but the secret is you got to jump off and make a start. Is this the right market to do it in? It's not the best market to do it in, but is this the right market to rent in? You tell me, man. It's difficult. The lack of inventory, though, like I said earlier, is kind of like a self-perpetuating cycle. We have people that would like to make a lateral move. Maybe they're empty nesters, or they just hate their kitchen, or they want a bigger yard or whatever. But they have a mortgage from like 15 years ago that they've refinanced down to like, 2 point something. And then they start to get out into the market and they see what they can replace their house with. And they realize, man, I can get something similar, but my payment's going to be like double. And so people stay put, meaning they're not selling their houses, meaning the inventory levels stay low. There's not a simple fix for this. The simple fix, if there was one, would be for interest rates to spike. However, that will slow down purchases, that will slow down sales, but it will not make the market any more affordable. And that's something people got to keep in mind. For every 1% that interest rates go up, which they're not going to in the foreseeable future, but if they did, For every 1%, you lose 10% of your buying power. That's something that people really struggle with understanding. So just because the market crashes, as people like to expect, it has to have a reason to crash, right? And a crisis in the debt market would be that reason. So just because the housing market might crash based on a debt crisis doesn't mean that housing is going to get any more affordable for the average person. So I guess my point is with this video, even though our inventory levels are at historic lows, even though running around with buyers right now makes me want to stick my face in the blender, I'll still do it though, because it's my job and I love it. Even all those things considered, it is still better to buy today than to wait for another 10 years. Because 10 years from now, guys, this hundo is probably going to be worth something like $60 or whatever. That's going to be the real purchasing power of it. And, if you guys don't believe me and you don't want to take my word for it, just look at the monetary supply over the last 30, 40 years and then look at the correlation with housing prices. I'll put up a graph for you right here just to see, here's the M2 money supply for the last 40 roughly years. Notice how it spiked during this pandemic like insanely crazy, right? And then take a look at the national median housing prices. You see the correlation? All it's going to do from this point on is accelerate, guys. So what I want you to expect from me is for these Friday updates to gain production quality and to become better organized and to become better in general. I hope that this is going to be something that is useful for you guys, not only as the public, but for realtors as a whole. I'm going to do my very, very best to get better at it every single week. This really is just a rough draft, trying to work out the kinks. I got better cameras on the way. And yeah, much love to you guys, especially here in the local market. Iggy the Realtor, out.